Hello and welcome to lecture on April 8, part 2. This is going to be pretty short, so just hang in there and we'll get through this pretty quickly. So this lecture covers chapter 9. It's a shorter chapter and there's just a couple of topics I want to make sure that we cover here. So let's get started. Oh, and at the end of this lecture, you'll see detailed information about the assignments due next week. Chapter 9 is called Crimes Against the State. But the offenses described in this material are really crimes against the system, government systems. That could mean the judicial system, court system, local or state government, the federal government, law enforcement, the correction system. It's someone committing a crime against a large government system. All of our systems, law enforcement, correction, the court systems, really rely on trust, right? If there's no public trust in these officials, if we don't have trust in that the justice system wants to promote fairness and find the truth, or that the correction system is going to be run fairly and safely, we really lose faith in our whole government. Now, in New York State, over 1 million people work for our towns, cities, counties, and the state itself. Over 1 million people. We have a huge number of people working for our government in New York. And we rely on these public employees to do their jobs, right? We pay our taxpayer money to have them do their jobs. We want them to treat people fairly, do their jobs correctly. We want them to provide the services that their agency is required to provide. And we want them to be honest. We want them to work the hours they said they worked. We want them to not accept bribes or treat one group of people better than another group of people. And we certainly don't want them sleeping on the job or not showing up to work at all, right? And when public employees and elected officials take bribes or otherwise misbehave in their jobs or commit crimes, people don't just lose faith in that person. They lose faith in the government and the larger system. Let's say a legislature from New York State gets arrested for accepting a bribe. It doesn't just affect how we feel about that particular legislator, it affects how we think about government officials. If you hear a story about a judge who got a DWI or assaulted his wife, it doesn't just make you think badly about that judge. It kind of makes you question the conduct of all judges, right? If he could do that, what are these other judges doing? Specifically in our justice system, trust is essential. We have to rely on people to tell the truth. That's why when you're in court, you have to swear or affirm to tell the truth before you can testify. When witnesses lie in court, the jury, of course, gets inaccurate or false information. And this can be the direct cause of an innocent person being convicted and going to prison, or it can be the direct cause of a guilty person to go free. And we'll have an example of that in just a minute. When law enforcement officers lie and violate the law, and specifically our constitutional law, innocent people can be sent to prison or even get the death penalty. So it's not only essential for witnesses who come to court to tell the truth, and for jurors to tell the truth, and the judge and the district attorney and the defense attorney. It's so essential, our system can't operate without that. And again, when injustices happen, when a guilty person is set free or an innocent person is convicted, we don't just lose faith in the particular people who were involved with that. It makes us doubt and question the entire justice system. And of course, it makes us worry about how we would be treated if we were ever a defendant in a criminal case, or if we had a friend or family member who was charged with a crime. Now, we covered obstructing governmental administration in part 1, but it's also discussed in chapter 9. So we'll just go over that again briefly, that obstructing governmental administration happens when you interfere with a police officer while he or she's performing their duties. So if a police officer is in the process of arresting someone and you jump between the police officer and the person getting arrested, or you're throwing things at the law enforcement officer or causing a big disruption, you can be charged with obstructing governmental administration. Now, perjury. Perjury is a big topic, and you don't hear about people getting charged or convicted of perjury very often because it's very difficult to prove. Now, when you sign certain legal documents, there's a short paragraph above the signature line that says something to the effect of, I assert this information is true and complete under the penalty of perjury. In fact, when you sign certain applications for federal financial aid, there's a similar statement there that you are swearing or affirming that the information you wrote on your financial aid application is true and correct. For example, if there's a question asking you how much money you earn every year and you write $25,000 when the truth is you actually make $50,000, that's perjury. Before a witness can say anything in court, the court reporter or the judge does the thing we've all seen on TV a million times, right? Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the information you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, or nothing but the truth? And then the witness has to say yes or I do, and then they're allowed to testify. If they don't respond and say, yes, I affirm I will tell the truth, or I do swear I will tell the truth, they're not allowed to testify. That's it. They have to leave the courtroom. So perjury is the crime of promising to tell the truth in a legal document, administrative hearing, or in a court, and then lying. Of course, we also call it lying under oath. Now, you may think to yourself, okay, this is a really dumb crime. Like, we tell people that they have to tell the truth, and then they lie. Well, why do we need to write that down, that that's wrong? Why do we need to legislate that that's wrong? And the only reason is so you can actually charge and convict someone of perjury and maybe even send them to jail. So the crime of perjury has 4 elements. The first is an oath. The second is intent. The third is falsity. And the fourth is materiality. So let's go over each one. An oath must be administered by an authorized person and it must be agreed to. So like we just talked about, raise your hand, swear or affirm to tell the truth, and then the person must say, I do, or I will, or yes. That's an oath. Intent is you must provide false information on purpose. Perjury isn't just about being wrong. Okay. If I asked you how much money your mom made last year and you say $100,000, and then I find out she really made $150,000, that's not a lie if you didn't know, right? You must actually provide information that you know is not true. Falsity means the information must actually be false. Materiality means the false information must be directly related to the central issue. The textbook does a really good job in Chapter 9 of providing examples and explaining each one of these elements. Oath, intent, falsity, and materiality. Okay? So you have to have 4 elements to charge someone with perjury. So let's just go through a quick example here. On March 1st at 2 a.m., a woman was walking down a street in Torrey when David ran up behind her and began punching her. When she fell down, David grabbed her purse and cell phone and ran away. David was arrested for robbery, and during his trial, he asked his friend Paul to testify that he and Paul were at Paul's house from 1:30 a.m. until 6 o'clock a.m. on March 1st, even though they never saw each other that day. Well, Paul came to court, he took an oath, and then testified that he and David were hanging out at his house when the robbery was committed. What do we call that? What kind of witness is Paul? He's an alibi witness, right? He's giving David an alibi. He's saying David couldn't have committed this crime, this robbery, because he wasn't walking down a street in Troy. He was with me at my house. Now, Paul could be charged with perjury because all four elements are present here. 1, he took an oath. 2, he intentionally lied. 3, the information was false. And 4, where David was at the time of the crime is absolutely material to the robbery case. Here's the second part. David, the defendant robber, can now get an additional criminal charge for a crime called subornation or suborning of perjury, which is the crime of convincing another person to commit perjury. So David didn't commit perjury himself. He didn't get up on the stand and lie about where he was. He got David got Paul to lie on his behalf. So Paul could be charged with perjury for testifying to something that he knew wasn't true, and David can be charged with subornation of perjury because he convinced Paul to do that. Perjury in New York State, there's actually 3 different offenses: perjury in the 1st degree, 2nd degree, and 3rd degree. You can see the highest level charge is a Class D felony. The lowest charge is a Class A misdemeanor. Notice that there's no violation here. This is a crime. So you can get up to a year in jail for the Class A misdemeanor, several years in prison for the Class D felony. The reason there's a difference in charge depends on the written instrument, the court. There's different factors there. But all 3 offenses, 1st degree, 2nd degree, and 3rd degree, involve those 4 elements we just went over. Now, we're going to talk about defenses to criminal charges in a later chapter. We'll go over all different types of defenses. But there is a specific defense to perjury in New York State. And that's if a person is charged with perjury, retraction is a legitimate defense. Retraction means taking back what you said. For example, you testify falsely under oath. And while you're still on the witness stand, you say, when I just said I was hanging out with David at my house, that wasn't true. The truth is, I never saw him that day. So whatever you said on the witness stand that you knew was false and you intentionally said something false, if you correct yourself while you're still on the witness stand and admit that you said something that was false and then provide true information, you can't be convicted of perjury. Now we're going to move to contempt. The justice system only works if people follow court orders and if they behave appropriately when they're in court. If a judge orders someone to do something and they don't do it, well, then there really isn't a justice system, right? We have to have people comply with court orders. If a judge orders you to do something, you have to do it. We also expect that people have to behave appropriately in court. I think you'd be horrified, and so would I, if I walked by a courtroom and I heard people yelling and carrying on and swearing and acting crazy. I would be like, this justice system is meaningless. It's like being in a nightclub in here. So we need people to follow court orders, and we need them to behave appropriately in court. And it's so important. It's a crime if you don't. So there's 2 types of contempt. The first is civil contempt. The second is criminal contempt. Now, please, please, please don't get this confused with civil court and criminal court. And if you just think of civil contempt as meaning compliance contempt, it'll be helpful. So civil contempt occurs when the court, the judge, issues an order and the person required to follow the order does not comply. For example, the judge orders someone to pay restitution to the victim by a certain date. He fails to pay it on time. The judge can hold him in contempt. He can even be sent to jail until he pays. A common application of this is child support orders. Someone is given a court order to pay their former partner child support and they don't pay. A judge can hold that person in contempt of court and put him or her in jail for a set period of time, and then they still have to pay the money when they get out. Criminal contempt is about somebody's behavior in court, and here you see a lady being forcefully removed from court. Criminal contempt occurs when anyone, it could be an attorney, the defendant, a witness, or an observer, just somebody sitting in the court and watching, and they misbehave. And misbehaving could include yelling at the judge, using profanity, being intoxicated. It can be any type of behavior that's just not considered acceptable by the court. Oftentimes, if an attorney is acting like attorneys do on TV and in movies and not listening to the judge and talking over the judge and not stopping when a judge says, "Counselor, I need you to stop," and the lawyer just keeps ranting and raving, the judge can hold that attorney in contempt of court. I have been in court observing other proceedings, and I've seen people get arrested for being in court drunk or high. Don't ever show up to court drunk or high. That's considered contempt. So just think of civil contempt as being compliance contempt. You didn't comply with a court order. And criminal contempt is misbehaving in court. Escape. Lots of movies about escaping from jail and prison, right? When offenders are sent to jail or prison, we expect them to stay there. Escaping from prison is its own separate crime, and now the inmate will face additional charges. And if they're convicted of escaping or attempting to escape, now they're going to be incarcerated longer. So they're going to have to serve the sentence for whatever crime brought them to jail or prison, and now they're going to face an additional criminal charge and an additional time put on their sentence. Helping someone to escape from jail or prison, of course, is also a crime. Have you ever seen this miniseries, Escape at Dannemora? I think, my personal opinion, it was really interesting, really well done. I think it's like 5, 6, or maybe 7 episodes. It's kind of like a really long movie just divided into parts. And this is a real life case. This actually happened in northern New York in Dannemora Correctional Facility. Dannemora is a town and the name of the prison, and it's on the Canadian border. So just think as absolute north in New York State as you can get. And a New York State corrections officer assisted 2 inmates to escape from a maximum security prison. I'm not going to tell you what happened to either of the inmates or to the corrections guard who helped them, but I will say there was a major update on this case in February of this year, but I don't want to give you a spoiler. Our last topic is bribery. Bribery is the crime of giving a government official anything of value to get something of value in return. Important thing to remember about bribery is it involves a government official. So if your mom pays you $100 to knock over the neighbor's mailbox, that's not a bribe. If someone pays you to wash their car, that's not a bribe. A bribe has to involve a government official. It could be a police officer, a judge, a member of Congress, a senator, a DMV employee, the county clerk. It could be anyone who works for the government. And the crime of bribery has 3 elements. The first is, we just said, the recipient has to be a government official, okay? So if you went to Union College and you were a student there and you paid your professor $500 to give you an A, that's not bribery because a professor at Union College is not a government official, right? So the recipient of the bribe has to be a government official. The second element is something of value had to be offered or given. And something of value covers a wide variety of things. It could be, of course, money. It could be a favor. It could be a trip or a vacation. It could be tickets to a concert. It could be a golf trip. It could be anything that has value. And the third element is the bribe was meant to get the official to do something. And that could mean just about anything. Maybe you paid off the mayor so he would award a contract to you because you have a landscaping business and you want to do all the landscaping for the city of Albany. So you give a bribe to the mayor of Albany and she awards you a contract to do all the landscaping for the city of Albany. It could be getting a government official not to do something. Say you run a business and there's about to be some laws passed that don't really serve your business very well and you're not in favor of them. So you pay off some legislators to vote against that legislation. So you could be paying a government official to do something or to not do something. That's it. I promised you it was short and it's short. So here's your assignments for April 15th. First is you will be taking a quiz on Chapter 7. So the material is covered in the April 1st lecture and the lecture from tonight, April 8th, just part 1. The quiz must be taken on April 15th between 6 and 8 p.m. If you need an alternative time or date, you must email me no later than Tuesday night, the 14th. And the quiz will be 20 questions. It'll be exactly what we've had on prior quizzes, true, false, multiple choice, fill in the blank. You're also going to get Project 7. Project 7's really easy. You're going to define 10 terms from the textbook. It won't take you very long at all, and it'll help you remember things from Chapter 9. So you'll get that in your email, and a copy will also be on Blackboard in the main menu under Projects. And your last assignment for next week is to read pages 311 to 326 in the textbook. As always, if you have any questions, something on Blackboard's not working the way it should, anything comes up at all, please email me. And don't forget, starting tomorrow, April 9th, our new participation policy goes into effect. So whether you want to send me an email or not, now you have to, because remember, 1 time per week, starting tomorrow, you need to send me an academic question about any material that we've covered in the past week. I hope you have a good rest of your week and a good weekend. Stay healthy and stay home.